When? So Daniel just flipped me off. So everyone on YouTube might catch that because you are not going to edit
I
that out.
know. Maybe.
No, you will not. Because now we're going to talk about it. But oh, now what did you say? Because I was going to say something before before we start. He's always like, "Say when." And so today I'm like, "Fine, when?" And he's like, "When what?" I'm like, "Come on." And then he flips me off. He's the one fucking off. Daniel, this is serious business. So you need to get your head out of your ass, stop flipping me off, and behave.
I have
Everyone's
no idea
watching
what she's
you.
talking about.
So thank you for tuning into our podcast. Like always, we're just screwing around to make you laugh. Um, we don't actually mean the harsh things. I will always say that because we don't. Don't even. Because I can, he wants to say right now, speak for yourself. Because this is how well I know him. Gosh. Anyways, thank you for tuning into our podcast. We're here to have fun and talk about topics that will inspire you, help you through life.
Do,
Today's
do, do, do,
topic
do.
is potentially controversial, and it's essential to approach it with an open mind. We plan on hitting it with class and style and
Oh,
respectfully.
oh, oh, oh.
Just wait, let me get through
Wait, wait,
this.
wait, wait. Did you know that I have a talking dog?
We're not doing this right now, Daniel.
No, I'm serious. I'm serious.
I want to say something really mean right now.
What? I'm
Am I
just
look
I'm just saying.
am I looking at him?
No, no. See what I'm saying? Don't make me respond to that. But anyway, no, because I did. I asked him one time. I said, "How does sandpaper feel?" He said, "Rough."
Oh
What's on top
God.
of a house? Roof. Talking dog. Beautiful.
Oh my
Anyway,
God. Can
go
I
ahead.
get through the disclaimer now?
Carry on.
You and your talking dog. Okay. Anyways, so Daniel and I want to emphasize that our perspectives stem from our personal experiences and how we perceive this specific topic through our own lenses. We are not here to impose our views. For those of you who are listening, you should really tune into YouTube because he's, are you 12? That's the
Maybe
stuff we
you
did
are,
in
but what
like
am I?
fourth grade. So we are
Your
not here
mama.
to impose our views on anyone. Rather, we are inviting you to listen in on on our conversation as we share our stories and beliefs.
English.
Our aim is to support Daniel. Like, can I just get through the disclaimer? Then you can
Well,
hit
if
me all you
if you
want.
would stop stopping, you could.
Stop interrupting me. Okay. Our aim is to offer support for those who may feel isolated, unclear, or who are simply looking for the support in their own self growth. We acknowledge the uniqueness of each individual's journey and extend our respect to all viewpoints, and we do request the same in return. So today we are, I made it, I'm done. So today we're talking about um, traditional therapy. So it's kind of like beyond talk, why traditional therapy doesn't work for everyone. And this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. So I want to start with saying this. Hypothetically, if you were completely single and let's just say you have a group of friends, but they're not in your best interest to hang out with. So you make this big decision one day that you're going to start dating and you're going to start channeling into a healthier group of people. I'm not saying that you can't hang out with the old group, but you kind of want to pull back a little bit and find a healthier group of people to hang out with. Are you just going to go for a walk and grab the first five people you see? Oh, this is who I'm going to date, and these are my four new friends. Probably not.
Depends on what
So
she
my
looks like.
biggest so now it's all about looks. So my
Mm.
question to you as you ponder that thought, if therapy has been a thing that you've done in the past, or plan to do in the future, do you pick the first therapist that comes along? Because if you do, why? Why wouldn't you investigate them further? It's a relationship that you're building to benefit your mental health. So if you just go in and just pick a random therapist, that's almost like that's walking a fine line of danger because you're potentially stepping into a place of a disrespect to the therapist. And it goes both ways because the therapist could channel this same idea and concept, but you're also disrespecting yourself because you deserve to have that connection with the therapist that's going to benefit you the most with your mental health or whatever you're working on. And I think that this specific thought and idea is one of the biggest reasons why therapy doesn't work for people. Because I don't think that therapy doesn't fully work. I think it's you need the match. You need to maybe find a way. See, I don't know how it works with them. I don't know what their rules and regulations are, but meet with them one time. See how you feel. Look at their picture, read their background, see what they're about. Make sure it's a good fit because I will be the first to admit I have been in therapy. Well, I'm not now. I haven't been for a few years. But because I have PTSD, complex PTSD, I just thought it was in my best interest for a while to work through some of those things to make sure that I'm in a good space because I work with clients and it's important for me to have myself on track. I can have struggles and things, but nothing really heavy or, life altering to hold me back because then I can't give to clients. And so through all the years that I was actually in therapy, I didn't understand this concept myself. I didn't. I have had I've had some rough patches. Specifically, my very last therapist I saw, every time I left her office, and I kept going. I'll tell you that I kept going and I had lessons to learn in this. But every time I left her office, I felt worse. And I thought, am I not supposed to feel better after therapy? And I didn't. I felt worse. And I started channeling back to why. Well, we were doing um we would go back to channeling my inner child and she kept taking me back to my 6-year-old self. And I do work through things really quick. My mindset is there. I use hypnosis on the side, all that. And she just kept taking me back. Well, how does your 6-year-old self feel today? She's fine. Can we move on? Well, and she would tell me that she felt like I still needed to work through some stuff with her. And I decided at one point I left feeling so bad. I went home. And then I channeled into suicidal thoughts. I'm like, where the hell is this coming from? This is not me. So I decided to take a break. I took a break from her for 6 months and I thought, okay, maybe now I can go back, have a healthy conversation with her and and we can continue on and hopefully she'll hear me and say, okay, let's move on then. So I went back into the office and I just said, I just need to share with you when we had our last visit, I stopped coming because I started feeling really depressed and having suicidal thoughts. Like, obviously, I know the difference. I'm not going to act upon it, but the thoughts came and she laughed at me. She giggled and said, oh, well, that's not good. And I was like,
You
yeah.
think?
And I was like, yeah. After that session, I walked out and I never went back. And guess what? Through that 6-month break and then having that one final session, my mood lifted. I firmly believe I just didn't have the right therapist with the right connection. And since then, I've been more open with my clients about it. And you know what I've learned? 90% of my clientele base comes to me because of failed therapy on their end. They weren't getting what they needed. And I mean no disrespect to therapy. I believe that you have to have the right match for you. But that is alarming. And I have therapist friends that I have talked to about this and they agree with me. I do believe that there is a crisis in the therapeutic world. Nobody's perfect, nothing is perfect. We're all in this to help people. We've Chances are if you're a therapist, a hypnotherapist or somebody that's guiding people in the mental health world, like you're there because you've been through some shit in your life and you want to help people. But I personally, as a hypnotherapist, I will not take on a client if I feel there is like if our energies don't line up, it's a no-go. I have to decline it because I'm not serving them and it's just going to kind of fall apart. But I can tell Daniel wants to say something, so maybe I'll be quiet for like 2 seconds, but I'm really passionate about this subject and I'm very
Oh,
open about
yes.
respectfully talking about it because it's real. It's real.
Well, I'm going to try to be as careful as I can, but I mean,
Just be you.
so 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 it's interesting that you say that about the whole, because oftentimes there's this thought pattern that, oh, they are a licensed professional, so they must be very good at their job. Okay. Being a licensed anything, being a certified hypnotherapist or personal trainer or a licensed medical practitioner, nurse, whatever, doctor, whatever you want to call it, psychotherapist, any of that stuff, whether it's licensed, whether it's certified, none of that stuff makes a professional anything. People, people develop a skill. Case, for instance, I mean, you are both certified hypnotherapists, right? And just as an example, because we went through this testing and did these, live certifications and things like that, doesn't mean we're good at what we do.
I was going to say that before, but I thought I'd let you cover it. You're welcome.
Developing the skill is what makes you good at what you do. Always being a student of learning is what makes you good at what you do. Okay, I have been to see doctors and I have had family members see doctors that absolutely fumble through the whole process. And I mean licensed doctors, completely got the diagnosis wrong. Okay, I won't get into too many detail because I don't want to be super specific for obvious reasons, but a family member over the last, I don't know, it's just a few years ago, was having some issues that he thought was physical. So he goes to the doctor. They diagnose him with uh, some type of heart disease or something, and was actually going to prep him for an operation. Turned out it was actually something all in his head. When they actually took him kind of a step up to a specialist, it ended up being something completely in his head, and he's fine. Never had to have any surgery, anything like that. But they were actually in the process of going to put him into a major surgery for something absolutely he did not need. Now, I'm not trying to bash doctors because don't hear me wrong. I'm fine with doctors. I mean, doctors can be amazing at what they do. But just because you have these initials in front of or behind your name or whatever it is, I see that and I think that's great. But what kind of person are you? Because at the end of the day, especially as a psychologist, psychotherapist, anything like that, if I'm going to go to you and talk to you about my problems, I want to know that you know what the hell you're doing. Because I'm not going to go out here and relive, just like what you were saying. I'm not going to go out here and relive all this bullshit just for that person on the other side that's supposed to be helping me fumble their way through it. And as it says in the Bible, the blind leading the blind, and both fall into the ditch. I ain't about that life. And well, I know I get a little harsh about this, but I'm going to be honest with you. I've had some negative experiences. Let me just say it that way. Negative experiences with that world. And not to say that, no, my camera does this. Pisses me off.
There you
Smash it.
go.
Anyway, I
No,
don't know. Um, but as you can tell, I'm a little bit passionate and I am also tired. Had sick kids, long week at work, all kinds of stuff going on this past week.
we
Um,
still show up.
yes, I've had vomiting children, diarrhea children. I mean, we've had it all in this house over the last 5 or 6 days. It's been absolute craziness. That being said, anyway, so there's kind of the stigma that goes with traditional talk therapy, right? That if the person is a licensed psychologist, psychotherapist, whatever the case may be, then they must know what they're doing. And I don't mean to be harsh or mean about this, but that is just not true. Okay. It's just like somebody that comes out of college with a degree. That's great. That prepares them for that particular field they got a degree in. That does not make them skilled. You build skill by experience.
Yes.
Okay. You build skill by doing the thing, not just by learning about it. There's a saying that knowledge is power. Well, and I think Tony Robbins has been credited with kind of rephrasing that, but I heard of somewhere. Anyway, it is that applied knowledge is what is real power. Knowing something and doing something with what you know is two entirely different things. Okay. You know, we can sit here and talk about your problems all day. That's something that I've always been honestly good at. I've been told this most of my life, even as a child, that I'm a good listener. People have always come to me and just told me everything that's going wrong in their life, and sometimes total strangers, people I just worked with, just hadn't met. They're like, "Yeah, I've got this going on in my marriage, or my parents, or this, or," and and I'm just like, "I don't even know you." Yeah, right. So that so I've had conversations with people about their problems. That doesn't make me a skilled psychotherapist. It just doesn't, right?
Right.
um so applying that knowledge is where it comes in it. And I want to hit on something else you said as well, and that is that there is something in the marketing world, especially as hypnotherapists, we have to do, which is what they call the know, like, and trust factor. That in order for people to buy from you, they have to know you, like you, and trust you. There has to be some of that built up in the process, especially in our particular field, because hypnosis is such a it's getting more mainstream, but it is kind of still of a little bit of a taboo subject.
Definitely.
And with that being said, though, is that we often leave that out when it comes to doctors or other licensed professionals and things like that. And I don't agree with that. I think that's the reason why it's the reason why specialists cost more, right? It's the reason
Yeah.
why doctors that specialize in a particular surgery. Now, the reason why they specialize in particular surgery is because they've done it hundreds and hundreds of times successfully. They've built up that know, like, and trust factor because people have done it, been through it, been successful. It builds up a level of credibility, which is another way of saying trust. So, something you said is just going to any therapist, I just wouldn't recommend. Even in the space of hypnotherapy. There are hypnotherapists that I've had conversations with that I've been around. And to be honest with you, I just don't jive with them. I don't even like some of the things they say. Don't like the way they see things. Don't like the way they, talk about certain things, especially when it comes to the health and fitness space, because that's kind of a passion of mine. But now that's their thing and that's fine. All I'm saying is I'm not going to go out of my way to try to buy from them or really even learn from them. There's things I believe you can learn from anybody and everybody.
For sure.
But there's also that trusting your own internal instinct, whatever you want to call that, intuition, whatever. So it's just as much your job to pick your therapist as it is their job to be good at what they do. So don't, because they're not all. I mean,
I'm gonna kind of actually do something I wasn't expecting to do because it's just like weighing and it's not going away. I'm actually gonna call myself out. I'm seriously gonna call myself out. And I don't know why. I don't know why society thinks that you just call a therapist and go in and start talking. Because here's the truth. Back in 2008 in November, I fell and hit my head. And I was born with a tumor. And so when I fell and hit my head, this tumor ruptured. Long story short, I end up like about a week later, I end up in ICU. And I ended up going to a local hospital. They transferred me to a bigger hospital. And I had two neurologists in the room with me. And I'm like, I don't know these dudes. Like, I'm scared. I'm in this big city. I know nothing. And at first, they were going to have to do emergency surgery. And then they realized that wasn't necessary, that I could go home and decide what type of surgery I wanted to do. And so I go home, and my automatic response was, well, I'm definitely not going to utilize the two surgeons that were in the ICU with me because I'm not just taking any random, excuse me, fucker to cut my brains open and fix me. Right. So we scheduled, well, first of all, I did research for months, for like 2 to 3 months, hardcore research on hospitals, on neurologists, like other doctors that play into it. I hardcore researched. I had statistics, I had charts, I had all the things. And it ended up to be that the one doctor that was in there had a really high success rate. And that hospital was actually the best place I could be at. And with him, because my situation was really severe and life threatening, I had to have two surgeons. And it was interesting because my aunt that was with me at the time, she had suggested, too bad you can't have this other doctor because, he's really got a high success rate. And it ended up to be that way. They were partners. So I had both of those doctors that were amazing go to have my brain surgery. Now we're how many years later? Um, And I know brain surgery is really, really, really different than traditional therapy or other services, not even just therapy, that you might want to utilize to better yourself. But I did all of this work and research for my brain surgery, but then I go to therapy and I didn't do any research. But they're supposed to help me with my mental health, make sure that I'm good, make sure that I have my PTSD in line and there's nothing hindering and pulling me back. So this is literally me calling myself out saying, "Hey, I've done the same thing." You know? And I think that we owe it to ourselves and the services, whatever services we use, we owe it to that too, to do the research. Because as a hypnotherapist, I'm not qualified in traditional therapy. I don't have my license in there. So sometimes there are times where I'm like, I think that this client needs traditional therapy. I have had one therapist that I know that I trust that I will send people to. Now she's got a group of therapists under her, and I have connected with one of those. So now I have two therapists that I know I can trust with how they work and how they think. Yet you still need to know that you connect with these people in the way that works the best for you. But over here on my end, I researched for months on hospitals, neurologists, doctors, but then therapy came along and I was like, okay, I guess I'll just do this person. Like, what? I know better.
What a good point to make here.
I know better than this. But I think I'll be fair. I think that right there was a huge learning curve for me. I think that's where I actually learned that. So I cannot beat my past self up for that because I think that's actually the point of, where I turned that learning curve to realize that.
Well, let me do it
So,
for you. You were a real idiot. No, I'm just kidding.
right.
Sorry. I wasn't even going to say any of that, but you say that stuff and it just triggers this comic side of me.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
no, that makes a very excellent point. Um, being somebody who loves the health and fitness space, and I follow a lot of content creators and different things like that, and it is an interesting thing just how much emphasis we place on the physical side of things, right? It's interesting when you look at well, you said you were talking about it right there, right? The idea of somebody actually opening you up doing brain surgery, which I get it. Now I get it. It's valid reason to do your research on that. 100% as you should. But then oftentimes when it comes to our mental health, it's let me just find the closest one.
Which led me to a place of depression and thoughts of suicide. What?
Well, and to the point right there is that I think the mental side of things is often neglected. And I've even noticed this a little bit in the, although some of the, well, I've noticed this a lot in the health and fitness, or in the health and fitness space, is that you hear a lot about you just got to have discipline, you just got to have willpower, and you hear the stories of like well, one of my favorite people, right, David Goggins, dude, just an absolute monster, has done all kinds of things, went through Bud's training, for Navy SEALs. He went through that 3 times before he passed because of medical reasons. dude's just done some phenomenal things. He got out of the SEALs training, and after so many years, retired from that. Then he started running ultra marathons. Now he's a fire jumper in Montana. Okay, guy's just an absolute monster. And people talking about just how disciplined he is and how much willpower he's got. No, I'm not like him. And there's my camera doing that shit again. I don't. Anyway, so I think it's my hands, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, um, so with that, we think that's all there is to it. It's just willpower. It's just being disciplined. And then when we can't do certain things like lose weight, stick to a workout program, specific diet, all those kind of things, we think I'm just not disciplined enough, just not using enough willpower. And if anybody's ever told you that, let me just step in and say that is such a crock of shit. Because as somebody who really had the same issue most of his life, but especially over the last several years, once I became a truck driver, got overweight by like 60 pounds, very unhealthy, started having minor health issues, yada, yada, yada. Weight would fluctuate because I tried the diets and everything else and just couldn't seem to stick to it. I thought kind of the same thing. But that's what kind of compelled me to go on this journey of discovery. And that's actually how I got where I'm at now with hypnosis and all that, is by going down that journey of like, okay, there's something else going on here. I can feel it. There's something else going on. And it's at that deeper subconscious level. But because there's subconscious programming is running in the background. But it's so interesting to me just how shallow we stay. And I don't mean that like in a negative way. I just mean like really in the depth kind of way. How shallow we will stay when it comes to our own mental health, when it comes to our own mentality, our thought processes, our all these things like with of our mentality, we stay at such a shallow level. And yet, when it comes to the physical side, we want a second opinion, a third opinion, a fourth opinion, and a 27th opinion. Right. And again, not for saying, not saying that that's not warranted as it should be. If somebody's going to, well, brain surgery, somebody's going to perform brain surgery on you, I mean, yeah, I think I'd be doing some hardcore research too. But then when it comes to our own mentality, it's like, oh, it's just willpower, or I'm just not disciplined enough, or
I love that. That's a really, really good point when you really think about how much we invest in the physical side of things versus the lack of the mental side of things. And I feel like we talk about mental health so much, and I feel like I use it and not even realize like what I'm saying. What if we call mental health mental empowerment? Why not? Doesn't that feel good? When we think about mental health, it has such a stigma labeled to it. Mental health, mental health. Everyone has a mental health issue. And I'm not being mean, crude, or disrespectful. But when we focus on it that way, it has such a almost like a negative pull down.
it is.
Like, so
Yep.
what if we do mental empowerment? Doesn't that make you want to stand up and take your life back? I mean, that's how I feel when I think of mental empowerment. And I know I'll just continue to say mental health, but I'm going to start to catch myself and I'm going to try to start rephrasing it as mental empowerment because that feels so much better. It feels like there's hope. It feels like, oh, I don't have to be down here in the ditch. I can climb this fucking
I'm the
mountain
same
and
way.
take my life back.
I'm the same way. Even when I say it, like when I was just talking about there, and I say it, it kind of produces this little bit of an icky feeling. And I'm just like, that's the reason why I kept
Yeah.
saying, like, your mentality, your thought process, because it's like,
Mental empowerment.
yeah, and I like that. I mean, and it's yeah, it's a you know kind of circling back to what we're talking about with just traditional therapy. And I'm not saying there's not a place for it. Certainly there is. Absolutely. Would never tell anybody to not go to a therapist. If
It's definitely needed because they can go on a deeper level. I believe their thought process is a little different than hypnotherapy. Um, they're more trained on the deeper side of the psychological aspects of things, I believe, where we're not necessarily fully trained in that part. They're definitely needed. It's just finding that right match.
well, and there's the thing about another point that you hit on, and not to say that all of them are this way, okay? Because again, I know there's great ones. Jordan Peterson, probably one of the most well known recently. Jordan Peterson, from Canada, he, he's a psychotherapist, amazing guy. Love his material, love the way he thinks about a lot of things. But you can tell a lot of what he thinks about is very evolutionary. It's not just that almost archaic Freudian therapy, talk therapy type of thing. And he's even kind of said so himself that is there's so much advancements in that. Uh, Freudian Sigmund Freud, who was basically the kind of creator, if you will, of talk therapy. What we know today is psychotherapy. Interesting thing about that is that Sigmund Freud, before he developed psychotherapy or talk therapy, was actually a hypnotherapist. A lot of people don't know this, but there was a hypnotherapy school in Nazi France, and he studied there and became a hypnotherapist. And from that, he took away basically the trance and things like that. The issue that I've often found, my personal experience, again, your experience is your own. Don't take this as law, just take this as my opinion. That I have found in traditional talk therapy is this very, very, very problem focused. Let's talk about your problems. Let's talk about what you're feeling that's wrong. Let's talk about what happened to you when. Let's talk about what happened to you or what didn't happen to you or whatever the case may be, right? And it can get very, very problem focused. And the issue that I have with that is that, well, it's kind of an old saying that where attention goes, energy flows. And you get what you focus on. And it's something that we use often, like in the NLP coaching world, which is your mind does not really handle negatives too well. And what I mean by that is if I tell you not to think about a blue car, the
I'm
first thing
thinking
you
about a blue car.
the first well, and this is the way the mind works. In order to not think about a blue car, the first thing you have to do is pull up a reference of a blue car in order to not think about it. See what I'm saying? There has to be a reference point to go to that negative. So if I tell you not to think about your favorite song, the first thing you got to think about is what's my favorite song? Oh, and then now I can't think about it. You see, so when it's always problem focused to start out with, it gets harder and harder to move away from that.
It's
There's more steps required to move away from the negative when you start there and stay there for a lengthy period of time. Not to say again that there's not a place for that, because some people,
yeah.
there are just medical conditions, mental wise, that it's needed, it's valid, do it. But there are a lot of them that are just not. And this reason why you hear a lot of stories about this. And I know you have, and I have heard a lot of stories about, oh yeah, I tried therapy first. I tried talk therapy, psychotherapy. I tried to see a, therapist, psychotherapist, whatever. I went and tried to see them first. Then I came to a hypnotherapist and got my problem solved.
I hear that so much. I can't even tell you how much I hear that. And I always am very clear. The chances are that you just didn't find the right therapist for you. So if you feel the need to go out and explore that more, you can. But for now, we can just do our thing. And if you don't get the results that you need, go explore. You got to do what works best for you. And 9 times out of 10 or more, I just like to give a little bit of grace, but usually 12 times out of 10, they leave the first session so freaking relieved. They're like, oh my gosh, this is what I needed. Because what people really just need is to be heard. And like, they want to know that there is a way to focus on what do you want. Yes, this is what you don't want. That definitely needs to be recognized, like you said. But it's also important to really connect with what you do want. A lot of people don't know because it's never talked about. So I'm inviting you, whoever, to all the listeners, what do you want? It's important to recognize what you don't want, but then shift out of that right away and think about what do you want? What does that look like for you? It's important. It's so important. You're not going to get out of what you don't want if you don't know what you do want because you have nowhere to go other than being stuck in what you don't want.
Well, and it's
That was a whole lot of, but
it,
you get what I'm saying.
well, the I reference, well, honestly, I reference Alice in Wonderland, because there's a part in that story where she's talking, I believe, to the Cheshire Cat, and basically she's just saying, look, I want to go somewhere. And he's like, well, where do you want to go? She said, well, anywhere. He's like, well, you're sure to wind up there. And then she goes, well, anywhere but here. He said, okay, just start walking. You'll end up there too. The and I say that, I reference that because just knowing what you don't want is not going to get you to what you do want.
You deserve to know what you do want. You
And
deserve that.
this is something I look, I'm with you. But this is something that, in asking a lot of people this question, especially since I've been doing hypnosis with people, asking people this question, I've got more baffled looks.
Yes.
and and more oftentimes than not, you'll hear things like, well, I just don't want to be fat anymore. I just don't want to be out of shape anymore.
But what
I
do
just
you want?
I just don't want to eat this crappy food anymore. I just don't want to feel this way anymore. Because and it's kind of a natural thing. It is, but most people start out with what they don't want, because
Yeah.
that's probably the easier thing to reference. Because okay, if I'm in the shit right now, I know I don't like it. I know I don't want to be here. So that's generally the easiest point of reference, if you will. And but which is always the conversation that I know I'm sure you have as well, Jamie, is with clients, is that okay, from there, so now we know what you don't want. So if you don't want that, then what do you want? And that's where you start getting into those answers. I want to eat clean. I want to be this certain weight. I want to look this way. I want to feel confident, or I want to feel in control of my life, or whatever the case may be. But there's often that moving away from the problem. And that's something that, again, not to beat the dead horse, as they say, but you see a lot of talk therapy. Well, how are you feeling today? How does that make you feel? It's always about something. I won't say always, but my experience, again, not saying it's not valid, not saying there's not a place for it. I'm always going to reference that because I very much believe that there is. But oftentimes, that in my experiences, I remember, well, heck, I can remember as far back as when I was in high school, because again, I've shared some of my story, and Jamie, I know you know, but my childhood was chaotic at best, and so I was in high school. I actually went to a therapist, and that's what it was. It was all problem focused. How you feeling? What's wrong? What's going on? How do they make you feel? How does this? How does that? I don't ever remember a time where it was, hey, nobody can make you feel a certain way. You have the right to control your own emotions. You have a right to love yourself and set boundaries against anybody, even if it's your parents or siblings or whatever, to set boundaries against them saying that it's not okay to treat me this way. I never got that one time, not once. I can't ever remember that. Now I go into the hypnotherapy world and hear that shit everywhere. you know,
You know,
you know what I mean? It's just an
I just,
interesting. Oh, one more reference point, just really quick, is that I'm totally going to hit this right here because this is one of the things I'm also super passionate about. But even in the religious community, you don't hear it's okay to love yourself.
oh,
Traditionally, I should say, there are some of those out there, and I know some. So, um, you don't hear it's okay to love yourself, to respect yourself, to honor yourself, to uh, think well of yourself, go after what you want, all those things. You don't hear none of that either in the traditional religious community as well. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, in reflecting on the therapy sessions that I've had with different therapists, I did have one. I did have one therapist. It was when I was going to domestic violence services, and she was good. And what I didn't know was she was learning. So she was fresh out of school. So at the end, yep, I know, right? And at the end of our sessions, she would always end, she was very problem focused, but she did include a little bit more positivity, um, headed in the right direction of, yeah, you know what I mean. So, anyways, at the end of every session, she would always do a little exercise with me to shift me out of the problem focus. And
Nice.
for some reason, I have forgot about that. She's the only one though. So I don't know what type of schooling she had, and I would have stayed with her. But she ended up leaving. She wanted to expand her horizons. She actually went into a woman's prison because she wanted to work with women inside and help them.
Imagine
But
that.
yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I can think of all these things that happened and things that therapists have said to me. And, at the end of the day, we're all human. But when you're in that field, it's really important to think about. I mean, someone telling me that I should just get married because then money will be easier to handle. What kind of solution is that? I'm like, I'm not the type of person to just go off and get married because then there'll be greater financial abundance in my life. Like, it's things like that.
A
Like,
horrible idea.
I know, so it's just like, yeah, we're all human and I don't want to bash anybody, but I still once in a while that pops in my mind and I'm like, Why would you say that to somebody? How is
Wait,
that solving a
this
problem?
did somebody say this
That's
to
nuts.
you?
Yeah, a therapist said it to me quite a
A
long
therapist
time
said that to
ago.
you?
Yeah, a therapist said that to me.
Now, this is a prime example of what I'm talking about. Just because you have a license doesn't make you any better than anybody else. Okay. I'm just, because
I'm
that's
like,
about the dumbest shit
well,
I've ever heard. Anyway, go
my
ahead.
morals are completely different than that. I'm not going to marry another human and use them for money. That's
I mean,
not how I work.
I would totally do that. If I get out of my
I
job
know
and
you
marry
would.
some 6 year old ladies on her deathbed or whatever, I mean, hey, I'm fine with that. I'm
Of
good.
course you would.
Which, speaking of that, if there's any of those out there, no, I'm just
You're such a
kidding. It's a
smartass
joke.
sometimes. It's
I can't
hilarious.
help myself. I'm sorry.
No,
But
it's
it's
fun.
what an interesting point, though. I mean, and
Yeah.
so here, let's get on our own bandwagon here and shift gears a little bit to that positive because we've talked about, I was just sitting here thinking, we've talked a lot about kind of some of the negative sides of traditional talk therapy and so forth. And
I did have a good one though. I just shared that. There's a good one. And plus
I don't remember that.
I know two therapists now that are freaking amazing. They're really good humans, they're really good therapists. And I don't know if it's just because we vibe together or what, but I mean,
Well,
they're doing amazing things. So
I know some really good therapists now because I know one of my trainers, Dr. Richard Nongard, um, awesome hypnotherapist. Now he's licensed in family therapy, and he's been doing this for Laura, I think 40 years, I think, or something going on that. I mean, it's been a long time, right? Love this dude. He's real. He's just real and raw guy. He's kind of a gruff kind of guy. He's pretty funny to be around. I love going through his trainings and stuff. But now he's actually licensed as a family therapist, and then he's also working on his doctorate in some other type of therapy. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he used to. I know out in Oklahoma, he used to actually run a practice, um, with just family therapy, and he learned hypnosis pretty early on. When he did his one of his interns right out of college, I believe he said, um, the guy that he'd done the internship with asked him about hypnosis. Said, they teach anything in school about hypnosis? He said no. He said the guy that he was doing the intern said, well, of course not. Why would they? Uh, sarcasm. Well, it was the funniest thing to hear him tell that story. But this guy taught him a lot of conversational hypnosis and things like that so that he could talk to when he saw clients, he could actually incorporate that in a conversational type of way. And he said it was just such a game changer for him. It really just absolutely helped his practice so much to the point where he actually just dropped the um out of his name, he just dropped the idea of family therapy and just actually opened up a Tulsa hypnosis center, is what he called it. And it's something I heard him say, which just really stuck with me. And it's the reason why I still follow him and still, his trainings and stuff like that. I mean, I'll still buy stuff. I still. Um, and then he said, because you can find a lot of peer reviewed research on hypnosis in conjunction with other therapies, like in conjunction with talk therapy or other type of therapeutic practices. So the two go hand in hand, they really do. But he also said this that has always stuck with me when I heard him say it. He said hypnosis is not just a complementary therapy. Hypnosis is a standalone therapy. On its own, can produce phenomenal results without any other types of therapy added into it.
I've seen that so much over the years.
And it was such a eye-opening moment for me. And I know I know another friend of mine that we just kind of getting to know each other and stuff through hypnosis and things like that. But we went to a conference this last year with the board that I'm certified with, the ICBCH conference. Uh, Jeffrey Rodman actually is his name, and he actually has a therapy practice, and he does a lot of hypnosis with that though. And so and I'm seeing that a lot more and more and more and more is that there is a lot of therapists, psychotherapists, and different ones who actually incorporate. And now that I know kind of what to look for, I've heard a lot of this thing in some of the more popular therapists and things like that. Um, Even like Jordan Peterson, I've heard some of his language patterns. Now, again, I know what I'm looking for now, but even some of his language patterns, like on some of his clips that you can see on like TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. Some of those things that he says has a element of conversational hypnosis to it, and kind of forward focused and solution focused. And again, I don't know that he's ever done any of that, but there has been some of those influences on his life. I can hear it in his language and just how he talks about things. Again, now that I know I'm looking for, but it's so interesting to me when I got into this world of NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming, and hypnotherapy. And what's really, really intriguing for me is that I have overcome, well, the most popular story is the weight loss. Haven't struggled my weight in 3 years using hypnosis. Seen everybody around me struggle with their weight. We'll get into that. Uh, but I've seen everybody around me go up and down on diets. Now, I'll be honest with you, I've changed my diet numerous times over the last 3 years. I've changed my workout program numerous times over the last 3 years. I've gone up in weight on purpose, and I've gone really lower in weight on purpose. And I can control that like you can control your thermostat on your wall. But it's because of this.
Mindset for the people
It's
that can't.
it's oh yeah, yeah,
For the
right.
people that cannot see you, it's
Mindset.
mindset.
That's what I said internally.
Yeah, I know. I got you. I got you.
But yes, it's very much your mindset, because all transformation starts within. There is nothing that you can change externally that does not start inside. Everything starts as a thought. And for those of you who believe this, whatever you believe is fine. I'm just saying my particular background with the Christian faith, even the Bible starts out as a thought. God said, "Let us do this." He said, because you speak what you think, right? That's where it starts. Everything starts out as a thought. Everything starts out in your mindset. That's where all transformation comes from. Even with the health and fitness space. Yes, I'm a big proponent of calories in, calories out. I've seen it. I've used it. I've all the things. I know there's other little nuances, but I'm just saying at the core foundation of weight loss, how much you eat determines how much you weigh. That's a big picture view, but there's science to back that up, right? So, but even with that being said, that is not where your weight loss journey starts. Your weight loss journey starts in your mind. That's where it's won, or that's where it's lost. The proof of that is people go on fasts, they go on fad diets, they change diets, they do different workout, and just don't stick with it. If they don't stick with it, then that's not the problem. And something I even heard, Jason Lynette, another one of my trainers, amazing dude, love that guy, heard him say is diets work, workout programs work. It's people that don't work. And what that means is it's not the mean that, it just, he's talking about your mindset. He's talking about that there's that internal process. There's a disconnect between what you want consciously and what you're, what's going on at the subconscious level. And so for me, everything starts in the mind. So when I got into this world of NLP and hypnotherapy, I started seeing how to operate my mind at a higher level. I started being able to, one of my favorite, obviously I tailor made everything to clients, but one of the most common things that clients absolutely love, I've had them tell me this before, is the control room.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of a I won't say it's a technique or a method, but it's
It's a
whatever you
mindset.
want to call it. Is that there's this place that in your imagination that within hypnotherapy, light just went out, and within hypnotherapy, um, that you can take people into. It's called the control room of your mind, and it's where you see all these knobs and levers and all these things to actually
Mm-hmm.
turn stuff up or turn stuff down. And you can do that. You can use this with weight gain. You can use this with weight loss. You can use this with confidence, with boldness, with even the fear ofs, right? You can turn that stuff down. And I've seen people just come out of a hypnotherapy session talking about how amazing that was, how transformative it was, just
Yeah, I
that
have
part of it
too.
right there. And I love including that when I can. I love including that in a hypnotherapy session because it is such an amazing game changer for people and people love it. But the reason why I like it particularly is the name of it.
Control room.
It's the control room of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I've been rambling on for a bit. This is a very long episode, but I get
Yeah, my
passionate about
spidey
this thing.
senses were like, what are we for time? Because we usually try to keep it under an hour, but
Yeah, this may
we can
be
go.
probably a little bit longer, but
Yeah.
it's just something that I absolutely am just emphatic about, just because, like I said, I've talked about the weight loss, but a lot of things I haven't talked about is, or I've hit on sometimes, but the absolute, most of my life, well, really until hypnotherapy and NLP, when I learned how to change all this, I always felt like I was worthless. And I mean that. Like, I felt like I was absolutely not good enough for myself, for anybody else, for the world as a whole. Um, I always felt like I had to be proving my worth by being self-sacrificing with my
Yeah,
time, energy, money, effort, everything. I had to do. I was only as good as the last thing I did for somebody. That was where my
man,
worth came in at.
I get you.
And
That was not a good place to be.
right. And I know, I mean, you both talked about this, and changing that, seeing that space, seeing that in my life absolutely change. What's up with that camp? I don't know. It's driving me crazy. Um, but seeing that change in my life to the point to where now I'm very confident. Now I can sit here and talk about these things. 3 years ago, no way this would have happened. Me, you, this whole thing, none of this would have happened. This podcast, all this stuff would have not been possible.
I
I would
get
have
you.
absolutely just fought. And look, I'm not perfect by any means. The biggest thing for me now, though, is that I understand if I encounter some type of internal resistance to what I'm wanting to change in my life, I know how to deal with it. I know how to deal with it effectively and efficiently to where it doesn't take me years of talk therapy to do so, where it takes me maybe a few days, maybe heck, maybe even if it's a month, if it takes me a month of doing hypnosis sessions, because look, hypnosis is magical, but it's not magic.
Correct.
You can't, it's not no pixie dust you just sprinkle on somebody and all their problems goes away. That's just not how it works.
It definitely
However,
makes everything easier.
it breaks things down to and I love the idea of this, which is efficiency. Hypnosis is one of the most efficient ways of change. It's not always going to happen overnight. It's just not. It's like a
Correct.
client I work with for smoking. I've only worked with a couple of them. I'm not a fan of working with smokers. There's not nothing wrong with them. I'm just not something I'm passionate about. But work with a smoker. He was smoking about 30 cigarettes a day, pack and a half. Meet with him for a week or 1 week. The very next week, I meet with him again. He went down from 30 to 2. He's still smoking 2 cigarettes. Now, some people look at that, oh, well, it wasn't a success. Well, I don't see it that way
But it was a success.
because he's been trying to quit for years and still smoking 30. After one maybe hour-long session with me, a total with the talk and everything, 1 hour-long session with me, and he's down to 2. That's a
I had
pretty
quite
big
a
step.
few. I'm like you, it's not my go-to to work with smokers, but I will really give them an in-depth intake to see if we're a good fit. But I have had quite a few people after one session, if they're really determined and they're on board with all the things, after one session they quit. And to
Well, and
me
it's
that's
totally
really
possible.
rewarding because it's really not my passion. I really don't care to work with smokers, but the ones I have worked with, you know.
Well, that's
But
one thing I tell people about
yeah.
weight loss. I'm like, look, weight loss is not like smoking. You can't just, it's not an on off switch. Either, you can't just like stop eating. You, you'll die.
Right.
Well, you'll lose weight, but it won't be the way you want it. But the point is that like in that's the reason why when I work with weight loss clients, it's generally a 4 session protocol because a couple of reasons. One, I start out with a portion control, but there's craving control. There's okay, why am I still eating this certain food or this certain thing? You can get into different reasons. I know me and you've talked about this, Jamie, um, but it's just so with hypnotherapy. Let me just say this. I can talk about this forever. I'm sorry. I know I'm just rambling
I do
on.
have a client in a little while, so
Yes, you do.
no, it is
Um,
passion. I'm very passionate. Like this episode is, I don't think we've had a bad episode, but yeah, there's
but
just,
it's
yeah, it's a,
just that to say that talk therapy can go on for years. Hypnotherapy can go on for weeks.
I
That's
do
just
though. I will be completely honest. I have a lot of maintenance clients just because they love the reboot. They love how hypnotherapy makes them feel. It gives them a sense of like refresh, rejuvenation, and like they can conquer the world. So I do have a lot that come back because they want to, because they love the sessions. So, I mean, but it's because that's what they want to do. I'm not telling them that they have to.
athletes are the same way. Now, a lot of people don't know this about a lot of athletes because a lot of them kind of keep it kind of under wraps because of they feel like it's an advantage they don't want to share
Yeah, I'm
because they're
sure.
very
Yeah.
competitive, right? Well, people like Phil Jackson. Now, I mean, some of you may know who this is, but Phil Jackson was the coach of the Chicago Bulls back in the Michael Jordan days. When the Chicago Bulls repeated the championship twice, those were under Phil Jackson. Now, Phil Jackson actually brought in a hypnotherapist
It's a
for
secret
his
world.
for his team.
No, nobody wants to admit it. It's a secret world.
Well, interesting thing as well is because eventually when Michael Jordan retired, he actually went to the Los Angeles Lakers with Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal. And guess what he did there?
Yeah.
Mike Tyson, Tiger Woods, all kinds of athletes that you can, you can look this up. It's you can find it. I mean, it's actors, people like Matt Damon, different ones who had to smoke on set, like smoke for movies and stuff. Can't remember her name. It was somebody else, but anyway, they actually went to a hypnotherapist to kick the smoking habit. Something they picked up in having to smoke on set, on like a set of a movie. And just there's tons of stories like that, but it's such a I'll just say this and then we can wrap it up because I know is
Mm,
that I have a super strong passion to make hypnotherapy my just my mission is just to really promote hypnotherapy as much as I can. And I have gone down that rabbit hole so deep. But the reason why is because I have been looking for the changes I've made over the last 3 years, my whole life. And I know what it's like to feel hopeless.
yes.
And then when I've talked to other clients and they feel that way to start out with, and then see the change after hypnosis, I mean, you can't deter me from that. It's results. I'm results driven, and that's what I see.
Yeah, I agree. So, one thing quick before we hang up, I've noticed you reference people all the time, in that of which I do not. I'm not sure why I don't. It's just not something I typically do. However, I'm going to reference Healing Relationships with Joy Wagner. She has a wonderful crew. So if you are looking for traditional therapy, she is in Juneau, Wisconsin, in the United States. So, um,
Did you say Juneau, Wisconsin?
yeah, I'm
Not Juneau,
assuming she
Alaska.
would. No, not Alaska, Wisconsin. Nice. So if you are, in the event you are looking for traditional therapy, I always recommend her when I have a client that I feel needs actual therapy. Um, with that said, it doesn't matter what you're looking for. If you're looking for a hypnotherapist, a traditional therapist, or any kind of mental healing modality of any kind, it is crucial to value and to honor yourself and the practitioner you are considering to hire, that you are a good match to work with. That being honored boosts the value of any field you are looking into. And you owe it to yourself and that field. And if a therapist or a hypnotherapist or any kind of service provider declines you as a client, think of it as in they are honoring you. You are not a good fit. They are honoring themselves and you, which is a high value to hold up to. So please keep that in mind and know that you can always shop around. Always shop around. For me specifically, I offer a 15-minute to a half hour chat on the phone. I always connect with clients via the phone or via Zoom before they are allowed to schedule an appointment with me, because I need to hear their voice, communicate with them, and I honor them. If it's not a good fit, we're not scheduling a session. So,
Same.
yeah, yeah, it's important. So, honor both sides. It's not a disgrace if someone turns you down. They're actually honoring you because they,
And it's not a disgrace if you turn somebody down.
right,
As
right.
a
If it's not a
hypnotherapist,
good,
as a psychotherapist, as a doctor,
nope.
this is your life. You're paying for it. You know what I mean?
Yes. So
Go with yours
I
too.
yeah, I invite you to channel this exploration in the mental empowerment world, we'll call it that, to think of it as dating or finding a new friend group. Go out and explore. Go find what works for you. Don't close your mind off. Just explore and have fun with it. And just know when you connect with the right practitioner of whatever field, you are going to have more amazing results than you would have if you would have just grabbed the first person off the street. And there's a high honor in that. So,
I know some people kind of don't like this thing, but the beautiful thing about the social media age we live in is there are a lot of hypnotherapists on social media. The first
mm-hmm.
one that comes to mind, I mean, I know I am and you are, but first one that
Yeah.
comes to mind for me is Anthony Sereno,
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal hypnotist. And he does a lot of hypnosis, like short kind of mini hypnosis sessions on his Instagram and TikTok page. And and I just think about that because that's a good way you can kind of start getting familiar with how people think,
Yes.
other therapists and hypnotherapists and things like that you can start getting familiar with what they're like, how they think, how they talk, just what they're really specializing in. We live in a very good age for that, to start kind of
Yeah.
searching and Finding people you resonate with, because the more you can resonate with them, and look, inside our trading secret, if you will, is rapport.
Yes,
One of the things
that's
that
number one.
we're taught as a hypnotherapist, NLP coach, whatever, the first thing you want to always do is build rapport with a client.
Hmm. That's
The
where the
reason
success
why,
is.
yeah, the reason why that is because you're in like a dance with somebody. When you enter a therapeutic type of relationship with somebody, you're in kind of a dance. So at first, as a hypnotherapist, we're kind of used to leading the dance until we get into the process further and further and allow us to back off and you start taking over. And that's the reason why that there's that rapport building. But I say that as a client, on the client's end, do the same thing. Check out people's social media and things like that. See if you resonate with them. See if they talk the way you talk and they feel about some of the same things you feel about. It's a good way to kind of start building that mentality of like, yeah, I can work with this person. I think they would actually be good for me, type of thing. So yeah, don't shy away from that. Use what's at your fingertips as resources.
Yeah, honor yourself. Honor yourself. Just
Yep.
imagine it's dating or seeking out new friends. Don't just grab the first one. Go explore, have fun. And thank you for tuning in and spending all of your precious time with us because we love it. We love
Yep.
it. We love what we do. So
We
thank you
do.
for tuning in. We appreciate you so much.
We do appreciate all the listeners and just, yeah, all the feedback, all the listeners, all the things. I know it's just humbling and super appreciate you guys listening to make this possible and um
Yes.
kind of motivating to keep going.
Yes. Thank you guys.
Thanks for listening.